The night was quiet, and the streets were almost empty. Arun walked alone, his bag hanging from one shoulder after a long day of work. He often chose the path near the railway tracks because it was shorter, even though most people avoided it at night. The cool air carried the faint sound of crickets, and the distant city lights glowed faintly on the horizon. As Arun walked, he heard a strange noise ahead. It was not the usual rattle of the rails or the whistle of a passing train. It was a soft cry, like someone calling for help. He stopped for a moment, his heart beating faster. The cry came again, sharper this time, and it sounded like fear. Without hesitation, he hurried toward the sound. When he reached a bend in the tracks, he froze in shock. Two small figures were struggling on the rails. They were tied, or perhaps trapped, because their thin arms moved weakly as if they could not free themselves. Their faces turned toward the approaching light of a train that was coming fast from the distance. The rails shook under Arun's feet, and the loud horn echoed across the night. Arun's mind raced. If he wasted even a second, the train would strike. He did not stop to think about why these figures were here or who they were. He threw his bag aside and sprinted forward with all his strength. His shoes pounded the gravel, and sparks of fear filled his chest. The train roared closer, the headlight blazing bright. Arun reached the first figure, a girl with long silver hair that glowed faintly under the light. She looked at him with wide, shining eyes, her lips trembling as if she wanted to speak but could not. Arun pulled at her arms, discovering that something metallic was holding her down. With all his strength, he bent the metal enough for her to slip free. "Go, move away," he shouted, pointing to the side of the tracks. She stumbled, falling to the ground beside the rails, but she was safe. Arun turned quickly to the second figure. This one was smaller, her hair dark and her eyes glowing like tiny stars. The train was almost upon them now, the vibration rattling every bone in his body. With a cry, he pulled the strange lock from her foot and yanked her free. The train thundered past a second later, so close that the hot wind slammed into Arun and nearly knocked him down. Sparks flew as the wheels screeched against the tracks. He covered his face, holding the girl close to shield her from flying dust. When the noise faded and the train was gone, silence returned, broken only by the heavy beating of his own heart. Arun sank to the ground, gasping for air. Both girls were safe, lying beside him on the grass. For the first time, he saw them clearly. They did not look like ordinary people. Their skin was pale, almost shining under the moonlight, and their eyes were larger than human eyes, filled with strange colors that seemed to shift like water. Their clothes were torn and unfamiliar, made of fabric that shimmered faintly as though it had been woven with light itself. Arun felt a shiver run through him. Who were they? Why were they on the tracks? Questions flooded his mind, but before he could ask, the silver-haired girl reached out with a trembling hand and touched his arm. Her voice was soft and broken, as if she struggled with the language. "You saved us." The other girl tried to rise but stumbled again, clutching at her side. Arun quickly helped her, steadying her against his shoulder. She looked up at him with eyes full of gratitude, whispering something in a language he could not understand. It was gentle, like a song, yet he caught the tone of thanks. "You both need help," Arun said, glancing around nervously. No one else was nearby. The tracks were empty, and the night had swallowed the noise of the train. He picked up his bag and motioned for them to follow. "Come with me. It is not safe here." The girls exchanged a quick look, then nodded. They trusted him, though they had just met. Together, They walked slowly away from the tracks, the silver-haired girl leaning on him for support while the smaller one followed close behind. Arun felt their strange presence beside him, as though they carried a secret too big for words. As they reached the road leading to his home, Arun kept glancing at them, still wondering if what he saw was real. Their glowing eyes, their unusual clothes, the strange language, none of it fit into his world. Yet they were alive because of him. He could not leave them behind now. That night, under the quiet stars, Arun had no idea that his life had just changed forever. Saving two strangers from the tracks was only the beginning of a story that would pull him far beyond the world he thought he knew. Arun's small home was not far from the tracks. He lived in a quiet part of the town, in a modest house that had only 2 rooms. As he guided the 2 strange girls inside, he still felt the rush of what had just happened. His hands trembled slightly, and his heart had not yet calmed. The girls stepped carefully into the house. Their movements were slow, almost cautious, as though they were not used to such a place. Arun quickly closed the door behind them, worried that someone might have seen what happened at the tracks. The memory of the train's headlight and the sound of the rail shaking was still fresh in his mind. He set his bag aside and turned to face the girls. They stood together near the doorway, their glowing eyes fixed on him. In the small light of his lamp, they looked even more unusual. Their pale skin reflected the glow, and their strange clothes, though torn and dirty, still shimmered faintly. They appeared delicate, yet there was something strong hidden beneath their quiet expressions. "You should sit down," Arun said gently, pointing toward an old wooden chair and a small bench. The silver-haired girl moved first, lowering herself onto the chair with careful steps. The smaller one followed, sitting on the bench, her hands resting on her lap. Arun noticed they were watching everything around them: the walls, the table, the small lamp, even the window curtains. Their eyes carried curiosity, as if this was their first time inside such a home. Arun poured some water into 2 cups and placed them on the table. "Drink this. You must be tired." The silver-haired girl took the cup in both hands. She sniffed the water before sipping it slowly, then gave a small nod as if to say it was safe. The other girl copied her, drinking with quiet eagerness. It was such a simple act, yet it felt strange to watch because they treated even plain water as though it was precious. Arun sat across from them. "My name is Arun," he said clearly. "Can you tell me your names?" The silver-haired girl hesitated, then spoke softly. "Myra." The smaller one lowered her eyes before answering. "Lonnie." Her voice was lighter, almost like a whisper carried by wind. Arun repeated their names, making sure he remembered them well. "Myra. Lonnie. All right." For a moment, silence filled the room. Arun wanted to ask many questions, but he was unsure where to begin. Finally, he leaned forward slightly. "Why were you on the tracks? Were you hurt?" Myra and Lonnie exchanged a quick glance. Myra's lips pressed together as if she was searching for words. "We were caught," she said slowly. "We ran away. But we fell. Could not move." Arun frowned. Their words were broken, yet he understood enough. Someone had trapped them. He wanted to ask who, but the fear in their eyes stopped him. Lonnie pulled her knees closer to her chest, and Myra reached out to touch her hand, as if to comfort her. "You are safe here," Arun said firmly. "No one will hurt you while you are with me." The girls looked at him with surprise, then with a kind of relief. It was as though they had never heard such words before. Myra lowered her head respectfully, and Lonnie whispered something in a soft tone of her own language. Though Arun could not understand, the gratitude was clear in her voice. As the night grew deeper, Arun gave them blankets and a place to rest in the small room he used for storage. They lay close together, their glowing eyes slowly closing as sleep took them. Arun watched for a moment before returning to his own bed. But sleep did not come easily for him. His mind was filled with questions. Who were Myra and Lonnie? Where had they come from? Why did their eyes shine like that? Why were they tied on the tracks? He turned these questions over and over, yet no answer came. The next morning, the questions only grew stronger. When Arun entered the small room, he saw Myra and Lonnie awake, exploring with quiet curiosity. Myra touched the edge of a book, flipping its pages carefully as though she had never seen such an object before. Lonnie was staring at the window, watching the sunlight pour inside with wonder on her face. Arun smiled faintly. You act as if this is all new to you. Myra looked at him, tilting her head slightly, then nodded. It is new. That answer only deepened the mystery. Arun cooked a simple meal and invited them to join. They tasted the food carefully, then began to eat more freely, their expressions softening. Watching them, Arun felt a strange warmth in his chest. They were no longer just strangers he had pulled from the tracks. They were living beings who trusted him enough to stay by his side. Yet in the back of his mind, he knew this peace would not last. Something about them was too unusual to be ignored. Someone would come looking for them. Arun did not know who or why, but he could feel it. For now, though, he pushed the worry aside. Myra and Lonnie were safe, and that was enough. What mattered was that they trusted him. He did not know what the future held, but he sensed that his life was no longer his own. It was now tied to the fate of the two strange guests who had entered his home on that unforgettable night. The days passed quietly, but for Arun it felt like his world had been turned upside down. He still worked at his job during the day, but each evening when he returned home, he found Myra and Lonnie waiting for him. They stayed hidden inside the house, and though they spoke little, their presence filled every corner. Arun noticed small things about them that troubled his mind. Myra's silver hair never seemed to tangle, and even after days without washing, it still shone under the lamp. Lonnie's eyes sometimes glowed brighter in the dark, as if reflecting light that was not there. They both moved lightly, almost silently, as though their feet hardly touched the floor. At first Arun told himself they were simply unusual people from somewhere far away, but deep inside he knew the truth was larger than that. He only waited for them to share it. One evening, while rain tapped softly on the roof, Arun returned home to find Myra sitting by the small table with a cloth wrapped around her hand. A sharp edge of broken glass from a jar had cut her earlier in the day. When Arun reached for her hand to help, he stopped in shock. Before his eyes, the wound closed on its own, the skin sealing together as though time itself had reversed. Myra pulled her hand back quickly, but Arun had already seen it. That is not normal, he said, his voice quiet yet firm. Myra lowered her eyes. She seemed torn between fear and trust. Lonnie, sitting nearby, clasped her hands tightly as if bracing herself for what would follow. Arun looked at them both. You have to tell me. Who are you really? For a long moment there was only the sound of the rain. Then Myra raised her head. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with sadness. We are not from here, she said softly. Arun felt his breath catch. Though he had guessed, hearing it spoken aloud shook him. Not from here. You mean not from this town? Or not from this country? Myra shook her head slowly. Not from this world. Lonnie whispered in their own language, her voice trembling, but Myra reached over and took her hand, steadying her. She then turned back to Arun. We came from far away. Our ship broke. We fell. We tried to hide, but they followed us. They, Arun asked. Myra's voice grew heavier. Hunters. They want us back. They will not stop. Arun leaned back in his chair, his thoughts spinning. He looked at the two girls again. Their glowing eyes, their strange clothes, the way Myra had healed her wound, it all made sense now. They were not human. Yet as they sat before him, shivering slightly from fear, they looked no different from frightened children who had lost their way. Why are they after you? He asked carefully. Myra hesitated, but Lonnie surprised him by speaking. Her voice was soft but steady. Because we are not like them. We do not follow their rule. We ran away to be free. That is why. Her words, though simple, carried a weight that Arun could feel. They were not just strangers. They were fugitives, running from something powerful. Arun rubbed his forehead, trying to make sense of everything. So your ship, it crashed near here? Myra nodded. It lies broken outside the city, hidden under earth and stone. We cannot reach it without being seen. Arun thought of the uniformed men he had sometimes seen wandering near the outskirts, asking strange questions around the town. He had ignored them before, but now he realized what they were searching for. Myra and Lonnie. A long silence stretched in the small room. Arun knew he should feel afraid, but instead he felt a growing resolve inside him. These two had trusted him with their secret, a truth far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. They had no one else to turn to. You saved me on the tracks, Myra said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. You did not run away, even when danger came close. That is why we trust you. We will not leave unless you tell us to. Her words struck Arun deeply. He looked at them both, their pale faces lit by the lamp, their eyes shining with both fear and hope. They were not his burden, yet he could not imagine telling them to go. Something inside him had already accepted them. You can stay, he said firmly. But you must promise to be careful. If people find out, it will bring danger to all of us. Myra and Lonnie both nodded quickly, relief softening their faces. For the first time since he had met them, Arun saw a faint smile on Lonnie's lips. That night, as he lay awake in his bed, Arun knew nothing would ever be the same. He had pulled two strangers from the tracks, but they were not strangers anymore. They were travelers from the stars, carrying secrets of another world. And now their fate was tied to his. The hidden truth had finally been spoken, and it was heavier than he had imagined. Yet instead of fear, Arun felt a strange strength growing in his heart. Whatever came next, he would face it with them. The days after the truth came out were heavy with silence. Arun went to work each morning, but his thoughts were no longer on his tasks. His mind stayed with Myra and Lonnie, worrying about what might happen. The girls remained inside the house, keeping out of sight. They rarely spoke during the day, yet their watchful eyes showed they were always alert. One evening, as Arun walked home through the narrow streets, he noticed something strange. A black vehicle stood parked near the corner, its windows darkened so no one could see inside. Two men in dark uniforms stood nearby, scanning the area with sharp eyes. Arun had seen men like them before, but this time they seemed closer, more focused. He felt his chest tighten. Could they be searching for Myra and Lonnie? He kept his head down and walked past without stopping, but his thoughts raced the entire way home. When he entered the house, Myra looked up at him instantly. Her glowing eyes narrowed, as if she could sense his unease. "What is wrong?" she asked softly. Arun closed the door firmly before answering. "I saw men outside. They were watching the street. They looked like they were searching for something." Lonnie gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Myra's face grew pale. "They are close," she whispered. Arun sat down heavily. "So it is true. They are hunting you. Who are these men really?" Myra took a deep breath before speaking. "They are not men of this world. They wear human shape, but inside they are soldiers from our kind. They serve the rulers we escaped. They can hide among people, but their eyes cannot hide forever. If you look closely, you will see their color change." Arun thought back to the two uniformed figures. For a moment, he remembered how their eyes had seemed oddly dull, almost too dark. His stomach twisted. "So they will keep searching until they find you?" "Yes," Myra said. "They do not forgive escape. They will follow until the end." Arun felt a deep worry settle in his chest. His quiet life was already gone. Now danger stood just beyond his door. Yet when he looked at Myra and Lonnie, he knew he could not turn away from them. They had no one else. That night, he took every step he could to protect them. He shut the curtains tight, placed locks on the doors, and even moved some furniture to block the back entrance. It was not much, but it gave him a small sense of control. Myra and Lonnie watched him silently, their faces soft with gratitude though they said little. The next morning, Arun left for work earlier than usual, hoping to avoid notice. On his way, he heard whispers among neighbors. Some spoke of strangers asking questions about unusual lights in the sky. Others said men had been going door to door, showing strange devices and asking if anyone had seen anything out of the ordinary. Arun walked quickly, not wanting to draw attention. When he returned home later that day, Myra met him at the door. "They came," she said quietly. "They knocked. We did not answer." Arun felt his throat go dry. The hunters were no longer just watching. They were testing every door. His small house was no longer safe. That evening, Arun sat with Myra and Lonnie. He spread out a rough map of the town on the table, pointing to the outskirts. "Your ship is here," "Yes," Myra nodded. "Yes, buried under stone. But soldiers watch the area. We cannot reach it alone." Arun looked at them both, his mind set. "Then we must find another way. If they are coming closer, we cannot stay here. We must move before they trap us." Lonnie's eyes widened. "You would help us leave?" Arun met her gaze firmly. "I pulled you from the tracks. I will not abandon you now. If danger follows, then I will face it too." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Myra reached across the table, her hand resting lightly on Arun's. "We trust you," she whispered. "We will follow where you lead." That night, as the wind rattled the windows, Arun lay awake listening for every sound. He thought of the hunters outside, moving like shadows among the streets. He thought of the hidden ship waiting under stone. Most of all, he thought of Myra and Lonnie, who had placed their lives in his hands. The hunters were closing in. The quiet days were ending. Arun knew the next step would decide everything. Either they would escape, or they would be caught. And he had no doubt the hunters would show no mercy. The fight for survival had only just begun. Arun woke before sunrise. Sleep had not come easily, and his thoughts had circled through the night like restless birds. The hunters were closing in, and his small house could no longer protect Myra and Lonnie. If he waited, they would be discovered. If he moved too quickly, they might be caught outside. When he stepped into the main room, he found Myra already awake. She sat near the window, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. Lonnie was curled up on the bench, still sleeping, her breath soft and steady. Myra looked at him with calm eyes, though her shoulders were tense. "You did not rest," she said. "Neither did you," Arun replied. He poured water into a small cup and drank before sitting across from her. "We need a plan. We cannot stay here any longer." Myra nodded slowly. "They will search every home. Soon they will find us." Arun pulled out the rough map he had drawn the night before. His finger pointed to the edge of the town, where the land sloped into rocky hills. "Your ship is there." "Yes, yes," Myra said. "But soldiers wait. They know it lies there." Arun thought carefully. "Then we cannot walk straight to it. We must move carefully, using paths no one watches. If we travel at night, we can reach the hills without being seen. But once we are close, we will need a way to distract the hunters." Myra tilted her head, studying him. "You have already risked much. Why do you continue?" Arun gave a faint smile. "Because I saved you once. It would mean nothing if I let you be taken now." At that moment, Lonnie stirred awake. She rubbed her eyes and sat up, her small form looking even more fragile in the morning light. "What are you planning?" she asked softly. Arun explained the idea. Lonnie listened with wide eyes, then nodded quickly. "We can help. We are not only weak. We have skills." Myra glanced at her sister, a small warmth passing through her expression. "She is right. I can heal. She can move objects with her mind. Together, we can protect you if danger comes." Arun felt a flicker of hope. It was not a perfect plan, but it was something. They would move at night, using back alleys and quiet roads. Myra and Lonnie would use their abilities only if there was no other choice. The goal was to reach the ship, restore what could be restored, and leave before the hunters surrounded them. The day passed slowly. Arun went to work as usual, forcing himself to appear calm though his mind was far from steady. He saw the black vehicle again on the street. This time, one of the men looked directly at him, their gaze sharp and heavy. Arun kept walking, his heart pounding. He wondered if they already suspected him. When night came, Arun returned home and packed what little he could carry. Some food, water, and a few tools he thought might be useful. Myra and Lonnie waited, their faces pale with worry but filled with determination. "Are you ready?" Arun asked. Myra took Lonnie's hand and nodded. "Yes. We follow you." They slipped out into the night, moving quietly through empty streets. The town slept, but Arun felt eyes on them at every turn. They avoided the main roads, choosing narrow alleys where shadows hid their shapes. Every sound felt sharper: the bark of a dog, the creak of a shutter, the rustle of leaves in the wind. As they moved farther from the center, the houses grew fewer and the land opened into fields. The moon hung above them, casting silver light across the earth. Myra and Lonnie walked close to Arun, their glowing eyes watching every direction. Halfway across the fields, Lonnie suddenly froze. Her gaze shifted to the distance, where faint shapes moved along the horizon. "They are near," she whispered. Arun clenched his fists. He could see them, two dark figures walking slowly, scanning the land. The hunters were spreading out, forming a net. If they moved straight ahead, they would be caught. "Follow me," Arun said firmly. He led them toward a line of trees at the edge of the field. They crouched low, moving quickly beneath the cover of branches. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly behind them. Myra reached out, touching his arm. "We must hurry. They are closing the circle." Arun's mind worked quickly. The ship lay beyond the next hill, but the hunters were too close. He needed to buy time. An idea struck him. "Lonnie, can you move those rocks?" He pointed to a pile near the slope. Lonnie nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. She raised her hand, and the rocks shifted silently, tumbling down with a crash. The sound rolled across the field like thunder. Instantly, the hunters turned toward the noise, their formation breaking. "Now," Arun whispered. Together, they ran up the opposite slope, their feet pounding against the earth. The air grew colder as they neared the rocky hills. At the top, they paused to catch their breath. Below them lay a dark hollow, hidden by stone and shadow. Myra's eyes filled with recognition. "There. That is where it sleeps." Arun stared into the hollow. Beneath layers of rock and earth, he saw the broken outline of something that was not of this world. The faint shimmer of strange metal glowed under the moonlight. They had reached the ship. But the hunters were still behind them, and Arun knew the true test was only beginning. The rocky hills were cold and quiet under the silver moon. Arun, Myra, and Lonnie crouched behind a boulder, staring down at the hollow where the broken ship lay partially buried under earth and stone. The glow of the ship's metal surface was faint, but it was enough for Myra and Lonnie to recognize it. Relief softened their faces, but it did not last long. From the shadows behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed across the rocks. Arun's heart tightened. The hunters had not been fooled for long. He could see them now, dark shapes moving carefully, scanning every corner of the hillside. Their eyes glinted faintly, showing that they were no ordinary humans. Arun's mind raced. There was no time to lose. "We must move quickly," he whispered. "If they reach us first, we will be trapped." Myra nodded and took Lonnie's hand. "We can protect ourselves if we must," she said softly. Arun led them down a narrow path toward the ship. Loose stones crunched under their feet, and every sound seemed louder than it should have been. Lonnie kept her eyes on the approaching hunters, her small body tense with focus. Suddenly, one of the hunters stepped onto the open slope, his dark uniform visible in the moonlight. He raised his hand, and Arun could see the others spreading out, forming a net around them. There was no longer a way to sneak through. They had to fight or be caught. Arun looked at Myra and Lonnie. "Be ready. Only if you need to." Myra's silver hair shimmered faintly. She took a deep breath and placed her hand on the small knife she had hidden at her side. Lonnie raised her hand slightly, focusing on the rocks near the hunters. Arun gripped a sturdy stick he had picked up from the ground. They were outnumbered, but together they had a chance. The first hunter shouted, signaling the others to advance. Arun moved forward quickly, yelling to distract them. He swung the stick at a nearby rock, sending it rolling toward the hunters. The sound made them pause, giving him a few more seconds to push Myra and Lonnie closer to the ship. Lonnie's hands glowed faintly, and with careful concentration, she lifted a pile of small rocks and sent them tumbling down toward the hunters. The rocks struck the ground and bounced against their legs, forcing them to stumble. Arun took the chance to run, guiding Myra and Lonnie into the hollow where the ship lay. Inside the hollow, the broken metal of the ship reflected the faint moonlight. It was damaged, but Arun could see its shape clearly. He felt a rush of hope mixed with fear. They were close, but the hunters were only moments away. The first hunter reached the edge of the hollow, shouting to the others. Arun stepped forward, blocking the path. "You will not take them," he shouted, his voice echoing across the rocks. The hunter hesitated. Arun's courage surprised him. No human would stand up against the soldiers of their kind. But Arun's determination, the way he protected Myra and Lonnie, made the hunter pause. Myra took the moment to move closer to the ship. She pressed her hand against the metal surface. A soft hum echoed as the ship responded to her touch. Lonnie raised her hands, using her ability to lift loose debris and create a barrier between them and the hunters. The rocks formed a small shield, blocking the path and slowing the attackers. Arun stood firm. He did not move, but his eyes followed every hunter, ready to react. His courage gave Myra and Lonnie the time they needed. Slowly, the ship's lights began to flicker, showing that it was responding. One hunter tried to push past the rocks, but Lonnie sent another pile of stones sliding toward him, forcing him back. The others shouted, frustrated at the delay. Arun used this moment to guide Myra and Lonnie into the ship. She climbed onto a small platform, touching the controls instinctively. The ship's systems, damaged but not destroyed, began to glow brighter. The hunters advanced again, but Arun stood in their way. "You will not harm them," he said firmly. His voice carried the strength of his resolve. Myra looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes, while Lonnie focused on keeping the rocks between them and the soldiers. A burst of light suddenly erupted from the ship. The hunters shielded their eyes, stumbling backward. Arun took Myra and Lonnie by the hands and pulled them further inside. The ship's engine responded to their presence, a soft hum growing louder, filling the hollow with light and energy. The hunters could not move forward. The light from the ship created a wall between them. Arun, Myra, and Lonnie huddled together, breathing heavily. They had survived the first wave of the confrontation, but Arun knew the fight was not over. The hunters would return, but for now, they had a small victory. Myra's hand still glowed slightly from the touch of the ship. "We are safe," she whispered, though her voice carried a note of caution. Arun looked at the ship, then at the two girls. "We are not free yet," he said. "But we are closer than we have ever been. Together, we will make it." For the first time since the chase began, Arun felt a spark of hope. They had faced danger directly, and though it had been terrifying, their courage and teamwork had carried them through. The hunters had not succeeded, and now the path to escape lay just ahead. The confrontation had tested them all, but Arun knew one truth clearly: as long as they stayed together, there was nothing they could not face. The hollow around the ship was quiet now, lit only by the faint glow of the damaged vessel. Arun, Myra, and Lonnie stood inside, catching their breath. The hunters had been pushed back for the moment, but their presence still lingered in the shadows outside. Arun could feel it, the tension, the danger waiting just beyond the rocks. Myra looked at Arun with a mixture of gratitude and worry. "We cannot leave yet." "They will return," she said softly. Arun nodded. "I know. We have to act carefully. We cannot let them catch us, and we cannot let the ship fail now." Lonnie's glowing eyes scanned the interior of the vessel. "I can help. I can make it work," she whispered, almost to herself. She placed her hands on a panel of controls, her fingers hovering over buttons and switches that seemed unfamiliar. Arun watched in awe as the lights on the console flickered and responded to her touch. Myra joined her sister. Together, they worked in silence, their movements careful and precise. Arun stood beside them, alert for any sign of the hunters outside. Each sound of shifting rocks or breaking twigs made his heart beat faster. Suddenly, the first hunter reappeared at the edge of the hollow. He paused, his dark eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight. He shouted to the others, who were now forming a line across the hillside. Arun stepped forward, raising his hands. "You will not take them," he said loudly. The hunter hesitated, caught off guard by Arun's courage. He expected fear, but instead he saw determination. Arun's voice carried a weight the hunters had not anticipated. Myra and Lonnie glanced at him, their trust evident in their eyes. Arun took a deep breath. "You have no right to harm them," he said. "I will not let you." The hunter advanced slightly, but Lonnie raised her hands, lifting a pile of rocks in front of him. Myra pressed a hand against the ship, and a soft hum filled the hollow. Light expanded from the vessel, forming a shield-like glow that blocked the hunters from advancing further. Arun stepped closer to Myra and Lonnie. "We need to make a choice," he said quietly. "We can leave now, or stay and fight. I will stand with you, no matter what." Myra's silver hair shimmered as she looked at him. "We do not want to leave you behind," she said softly. Lonnie nodded in agreement, her small hand gripping Arun's. Together, they made the decision. They would escape, but only together. Arun felt a mix of fear and determination, knowing that leaving the hunters behind would not end the danger forever. But for now, survival was the priority. Myra and Lonnie worked quickly to repair the damaged controls of the ship. Arun gathered small rocks and debris to create barriers, slowing any hunter who tried to reach them. The hum of the ship grew louder, resonating through the hollow and filling it with energy. The hunters shouted from above, frustrated at their inability to reach the group. Arun, Myra, and Lonnie moved with careful precision, each step coordinated and careful. The bond between them had grown stronger, and their teamwork became almost instinctive. Finally, the ship's lights glowed steadily. A soft vibration ran through the hull, signaling that it was ready. Myra turned to Arun. "It is time," she said. Arun nodded. He led them to the entrance of the ship, ensuring that Lonnie and Myra were both steady. "Hold on," he said, his voice calm but firm. They stepped inside, the interior of the ship glowing with soft, warm light. The seats and controls were unfamiliar, but Myra and Lonnie guided Arun through them. The vessel responded to their presence, as though it recognized them as friends rather than passengers. Arun took one last look outside the hollow. The hunters were still there, shouting and gesturing, but they could not reach them. He felt a surge of relief mixed with pride. They had faced the danger together, and now they had a chance to escape. Myra and Lonnie guided the ship's controls, lifting it slowly from the ground. Arun watched as the rocky hills fell away beneath them. The vessel rose higher, leaving the hunters far below, unable to follow. The stars stretched above them, vast and endless, as if welcoming the travelers to a new world. Arun felt a sense of wonder as the ship moved into the sky. Myra and Lonnie sat beside him, their hands still gripping his. "We are free," Myra whispered, her voice filled with hope. "Yes," Arun said, smiling at them both. "And we will face whatever comes next together." The ship's engines hummed steadily, carrying them beyond the reach of the hunters. The danger was not gone, but the choice to stand together had given them a new beginning. For the first time since the tracks, Arun felt the weight of hope. As they moved through the stars, Arun realized that life had changed forever. Myra and Lonnie were no longer just strangers he had saved, they were companions, friends, and part of a journey that would take them far beyond anything he had ever imagined. and in that moment, Arun knew one truth clearly: courage, trust, and unity could overcome even the greatest dangers. They had chosen to stand together, and together they had found the freedom they had been seeking. The stars stretched before them, endless and bright, and the ship carried them forward into a future filled with possibilities, adventures, and the bond of friendship that could never be broken.